One.
Good evening, Cape Town. Good evening, South Africa. Good evening, PMC family. Welcome to the official live stream podcast called Across the Aisle, birthed by PMC, our fearless leader, Marius Fransman. Leaders, today in the studio, it actually marks a very significant point in PMC's journey. Right now in studio, I've got with me none other than the national coordinator, Zandre Allen, a man that needs no introduction. Fearless leader, he is as smooth as butter. A warm knife cutting through butter. This man cuts through political bureaucracy with ease. Welcome, Leader Zandre. It's great to have you in studio.
Yes, no, thank you, Grant. And thanks for having me in studio tonight. Looking forward to a very fruitful engagement. And I think our people want to know why PMC. So, yes.
Yeah, that's been a real conundrum for most people. Why the PMC? But before we get into that, tell me quickly, who is Zandre Allen? Because people don't know, or people might not know who you are as a person, and what is your personal value system?
Yes, my name is Zandre Allen. I'm the National Coordinator for the People's Movement for Change. I'm a grassroots activist. I've been involved in communities since the age of 14 years old, when I started at the Samaritan, a non-profit organization based in West Bank, where I grew up. So from that age, I grew a passion for people, a passion for change, bringing change in the community. I see what's happening in our communities on a daily basis, and if you know West Bank, you'll know that it's a crime-driven community. But beyond the crimes, like in every other community, whether it's Elsie's River, Kailitsas, Eldorado Park, Uppington, Nelson Mandela Bay, there is great potential for development in these communities. So my passion started at this NGO, and that's where my love grew, to bring about change in my community, developing people, making sure that our people get what they deserve from our government institution, whether it's national government, provincial government, or local government, making sure that we help these government institutions accountable for the services that should be given to our people. So I've been involved in the community for about 16 years. I'm only 31 years old now, and yes, it's a passion that is driving me every day. Whether it's young people or elderly people, whether it's just a pothole or a crime scene, making sure that the police, law enforcement agencies are held accountable in our communities.
Okay, I know you're a father, right? You said you're 31 years old. Is what you are doing partially driven to ensure that your children has a better future and a safer haven? Because I believe that every child should have the ability and the gift to dream. Is that partially why you are doing what you are doing?
Look, at first, I've done it because of the passion that I've developed in communities. But when my first child was born, she's 4 years old now, and it's a daughter. It's my first daughter. I have two daughters. it, when I look at what's happening in our communities, I grew up in West Bank, which is a red zone community, and amongst the police stations, the highest in the Western Cape and in South Africa. You see children being raped, whether they're 2 years old, 3 years old, 16, people, they don't care. And I got so conscious of what's happening around me, and it's a drive that drives me to do even more in our communities, because I have 2 girls.
Yes.
And to create safer spaces for our next generation, not only for my children, but for every child there on the streets, whether you're from West Bank or Elsies River or Kailitsa, or you're from Constantia, all lives matters.
Yes.
So we need to create safer spaces, and we need to hold these government agencies or institutions accountable to make sure that there's safer spaces for the next generations, for those 4 years old, or whether you're 16 years old, even elderly
Yes.
people as well. So yeah, it drives me even more,
Okay.
knowing that I have 2 daughters.
Okay, perfect. Tell me, who is PMC and what do they stand for?
Yeah, the PMC is a grassroots movement that was born out of the struggles and pains and even the hopes of our people. The Antisanas, Angogos, whether you're from Elsies River, Kailitsa, Soshanguve, Gauteng, Uppington. I mention all these names because these are where the people that said, look here, I want to be part of this movement are, and people who are driving change in the communities on a daily basis. Why do I mention the struggles and the pains of our communities? We see what's happening in our communities. We see government is failing us on a national level. They're failing us provincially. They're failing us locally. And the PMC stood up and was born to make sure that we challenge the narrative that's being created out there that the ANC can't govern. The DA in the Western Cape don't know whether they are for the blacks or the whites or the colored people. We need to make sure that we create a space for everyone, whether you're colored, black, Indian, or white. The PMC was born to make sure that we treat everyone equally. Van ons is 'n party vir alle mense.
Yes.
So ons is die party van my neighbor, die pastor daar binne in die kerk en die NGO wat al die jare besig is om verandering te bring binne in sy gemeenskap. Dit is wie die PMC is. Die ordinary persoon wat elke dag, elke môre opstaan en binne sy gemeenskap sonder betaling, sonder om iets te verwag van iemand, maar wat net hy dryfkrag binne hom het. Kyk, ek wil 'n verandering bring binne my gemeenskap en hy sal elke dag opstaan om seker te maak dat hy hou die councillor verantwoordelik,
Yes.
dat hy hou die local government wat in beheer is verantwoordelik. Dit is wie die PMC is. Ons bestaan uit NGO's, uit ons indigenous leiers wat die PMC lei en wat binne ons space is. En ons wil die status quo wat daar buitekant uit is van politicians wat career politicians is. We want to change that.
Yes, yes.
We're not here to build empires for ourselves and for the people around us. We want to bring change to the communities that feels that politicians have failed them, that feels that government has failed them. We want to create, not only talk, but we want to bring real change on the ground. People must see the actions. You can go on lives, you can say all these beautiful things. We can even say here at this podcast tonight, we can promise people a lot of things, but this is not what people want to hear. People want to they want to see what you are saying. They want to see that into action on the ground. They want to see it's being delivered. And the PMC was born for that. To make sure that we're not only speaking change, but once we're in government, actual change will happen and it will be visible to the people out there.
Tell me quickly, what is this? What is the reason or the reason behind the slogan, family, community, opportunity? What does the People's Movement for Change mean by that? And how do they actually plan on delivering on what they mean by it?
Our three pillars, family, community, opportunity, it's something that's really standing out for me personally. Because if you, families doesn't feel safe, it doesn't feel secure, but if your family is secure, and especially if you are in a space of politics and in community, we need to create safe spaces. We need to make sure that families out there in our communities, that they are being looked after and that they get the services that they deliver. Even jobs, we have a high unemployment rate in South Africa. And the PMC says that we want to restore power back to the people. Okay. Making sure that what they were saying in the apartheid years, the people shall govern. Yes. And we need to make sure that we stick to that as the PMC. So we believe that we need to put power back into the hands of the people. The people knows the areas, they know their communities, they know what's happening in our country, and they also know the issues, those bread and butter issues in our communities. They are aware of it. They know the crime. So who has the solutions? Not government institutions. It's not national government. They make the decisions there for our people. But what the PMC says, that let's give power back to the people. Let them make sure, we must go out and listen to the people. Listen to the cries of the Ansanas, listen to the cries of Gogas in our communities, and then act on those. That is what government needs to do, because we make decisions in parliament that doesn't benefit the people. We say as the PMC, let's go to our communities and let's listen. Take that cries of our communities and start implementing it on the ground. So basically that is who the PMC is. Okay, so fundamentally what you are saying is, if I'm understanding this correct, is that the PMC slogan, if the family is secure, the community is better served. Definitely. Which will then in turn lead to better opportunities for that community. Yeah. That's what you're saying. That's what I'm saying. Fantastic. Just one more question. Why must people vote PMC in 2026? I think I've mentioned it previously. The PMC was born because of the cries of our community out there. And the failure of government to act, and not only to act, but to implement real change and policies that benefits the people, and not my clique of people. If we look on nationally, it's a certain group of people that's benefiting. If we bring it back home to where we're currently sitting in the Western Cape, we see a racial division between white, blacks, and coloreds. So spatial apartheid hasn't been addressed yet, and especially in the city of Cape Town. If you go to Swellendam, it's a train line that divides the poor and the rich. If you go to Calvinia, you will see it's a road that divides the poor and the rich. There's no inclusivity in these communities, and we need to address that. But how do we address it? It's to give power to the people that really wants to bring change, people that wants to make a difference. I mentioned previously that we're not career politicians. We are the pastors in your community.
Yes.
The NGOs in your community. Those community activists that stand up every morning to make sure that they fight for the people. And this is why people must vote for us, because we're not there to fill our pockets. I mean, there's a lot of us that come from previous political movements where they have failed to address what we stand for. You've mentioned what's my principle, my values.
Yes.
I joined a previous political party because of my principles and my values that I stand for. But they've moved away from that. They've moved what they said they would do. They failed to implement that, and that's what we need to redress in the PMC, and what we are going to redress in the PMC, to make sure that we restore hope, we give dignity. But we also create a space where people feel, look here, I'm part of this family.
Yes.
I'm part of this community, and everyone benefits from the opportunity that's being created here in the community. So we call on the NGOs, we call on the pastors out there, we call on those grassroots community activists to partner with the PMC. We're not a political party. We don't want to be seen as a political party, because political parties have failed our people. They have failed us young people like myself, who's dreaming of seeing a better Cape Town, a better Western Cape, a better South Africa, even a better world. They have failed us. And that's why a lot of young people especially, they don't have an interest in voting.
Yes.
They say, why should I vote? If my community looks like this?
Yes.
Why should I vote if there's no opportunities? Why should I vote if there's so much crime in my community, if I don't have access to basic services? Because these political parties have failed me, and they failed us for the last 31 years, and they're going to fail us again. We say no. We want to give hope to those people that thinks that political parties have failed. We want to restore the hope, and we want to give power into your hands. You need to decide what must happen in your community, because you know the issues in your community. You know what the solution is to those bread and butter issues. And we call on those people to come on board and to partner with the People's Movement for Change. This movement is here to drive not only change, but to make sure that we deliver change to the people. It should be evident that hope, that people are longing, that desire of living in a safe space. We need to restore, and we are going to restore that come 2026. Whether we just want to be on the main table. If you are on the main table, you can make decisions that will benefit the people, but we're not going to make that decisions if we haven't consulted with the people.
Yeah. So that's the difference. The one thing that I actually like about the People's Movement for Change, it's completely unapologetic what it stands to international solidarity. Right? I do believe that people don't know the history or the context of why we are standing with international solidarity. But as a young person growing up, a lot of people don't know why we say we are standing in solidarity with Russia, Cuba, Palestine, and the greater BRICS countries, right? Can you give the audience just a short briefing on why we say we stand unapologetically in international solidarity?
Yes, no, definitely. what I've learned over the last few weeks, we had a, an event about 2 weeks ago, a Russia-South Africa friendship event where we were commemorating the World War II victory.
Yes.
And it's at that event where I've heard about things and the relation between Russia, Cuba, Palestine, and these other areas that's not being taught in our schools. It's not in our curriculum. And that's actually where my eyes opened, and I went to do some research about this relations. And when you do the research, you see that there was a tight bond between these nations and South Africa in making sure that we end apartheid out there. And it's also an important relation because during apartheid, this relation that was built by the ANC and these nations, they made sure that the ANC's Umkhonto Sizwe soldiers got the resources. They made sure that they got the proper training, making sure that they fight and sanction South Africa. They didn't agree with apartheid. They wanted freedom.
Yes.
And that relation, it comes on a long time. But the saddest part of this whole thing and this relation between Russia, Cuba, Palestine, and many other African nations like Angola and others, it's not in our history. I wish that I could have learned more about these relations in history because I love history.
Yes.
But in our history books today, you've learned about the colonizers. They teach our children about the colonizers. We don't want to hear about what people, the bad things that happened. We don't want to be reminded of what happened during apartheid. We want to know who's the people that assisted us, that gave us the resources, that made sure that apartheid was ended. Because it's not only the ANC that ended apartheid. There was relations between Russia and these other nations that strongly condemned what was happening in South Africa. And I think that was a strong driving force behind the liberation movement in making sure that the soldiers were trained, they have the proper resources, and also have the intellectual capacity to deal with apartheid. So it's very fascinating when you sit amongst people that were involved in apartheid and on the ground in the trenches. They were in Russia, they were in Cuba, they were in Angola, in DRC. And they got the training there. And when you listen to them, it saddens you that, look, I've never heard of this. Where does this come from? It's not being taught in our schools. They talk about the French Revolution. They talk about when Jan van Riebeeck came here. But not who's the people that actually pushed us out of apartheid, that gave us the resources to make sure that we're not apartheid. I mean, I'm a rugby person. New Zealand, which is one of our early
greatest enemies,
rivals,
yes,
they refuse to play against the apartheid regime. They refused to play against the Springboks. Because they supported us, they were standing in solidarity with us, and I only came to this when I spoke to someone and say, why are you supporting and why is there so many New Zealand supporters in South Africa? It's because our people didn't support the apartheid government, and New Zealand was standing in solidarity with the people of South Africa and those that were being oppressed. And that's why they refused. But we don't know about it. And our children won't know about it unless the curriculum changes. And I think this is something that we need to push and fight for. That in our schools and in our curriculums, our children needs to know who is the nations that really supported South Africa, that really stood by South Africa. I mean, America supported the apartheid system. They supported a regime that oppressed people. And you know, truth be told, that some of our people today are still suffering the pains
Because
of
of
apartheid.
that. Yes.
And these nations that want to say a lot of things about South Africa and pushing out false narratives, they were, I want to go as far to say that they were part of oppression. They were part of the scars that some of our people are still having on them today. Some of our brave soldiers that is passed on, they were part and parcel of that. And we can't support such nations.
You know, when I started working on the Legacy of Hope documentary, I had the privilege of meeting people like Popo Pemba. I had the privilege of meeting Nyame Boy. I had the privilege of meeting Zenzile Khoisan. I had the privilege of meeting Chris Nissen. And what came to me during all of that, right, and something that stood out was the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. It happened in 1986, right, in Angola. So I did some research about that, right, because I was working on something that dealt directly with it. So as I started to delve into this, I realized the bond between the then Soviet Union, now Russia, and Cuba. And in that battle, Cuba dispatched something like 20,000 soldiers to assist Angola, fighting back the South African apartheid regime and UNITA, right? And with the support of the Russians, the Cubans helped South Africa reach its liberation. It helped Angola, it helped Botswana, it helped Namibia. All these African countries actually achieved their liberation through the support of international solidarity. If you go into any African continent, if you look at the guns they are using, AK-47s, that is a Russian weapon. That just shows you the support that Russia lended to African countries, including South Africa, right, that led to their liberation. But the one thing that you mentioned now is the fact that our history books only start documenting oppression from the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck, 1652. However, no one talks about the Battle of Salt River, which took place in 1510, where the Khoisan actually fought the Portuguese. So there is a history of undocumented oppression, right, by white people coming here, taking ownership of a land that's not theirs. So I want to touch on the US that supported oppression. If you look into their own country, they are still doing it there.
Oh, definitely.
They are oppressing their own people.
Definitely.
Now they are driving a narrative that South Africa has a white genocide, right? Where white farmers are being killed and the land are being taken. What is your opinion not talking about PMC, what is your
Yeah.
opinion about that? Because I have a view,
Yeah.
right? But I would like to know what is your view first.
No, I've listened very. I was very interested in that bilateral between our President Cyril Ramaphosa and the U.S. President Donald Trump. And in that, when they were putting facts on the table or false narratives of us creating a white genocide, I have to agree with Julius Malema and ask, where's the land first?
Yes.
Where's the land? Where's these farmers? President Donald Trump went on international television to say that there's white genocide taking place in South Africa, a false narrative that the US is trying to push, and it's not only to push, it's, there's people investing in South Africa, lots, billions and billions of rands of investment here. It will directly affect our economy, and people say if the US jumps and then every other nation follows, and that narrative that was pushed, we know what's happening in South Africa, and for a president to go on national television or international television to say that white genocide is indeed taking place because of, look here, there's thousands of white buckets that is gathering because they are burying thousands of white people. Have you seen any or heard on television? Because our media would have been there.
Yes.
We would have known. But what is interestingly in the Senate, the Senator Tim Kaine, I've listened to a video of where he challenged the secretary, the
Yes.
US secretary,
Yes.
challenge him and say, bring the facts to the table where white genocide has taken place. He's in fact asking the secretary to say, look here, ask these farmers where their farms were, because they regard themselves as farmers. Ask them where their farms are. It's a false narrative directly to attack our economy, but also an attack on our governing system, because what they are saying that white people doesn't belong in South Africa, and our freedom charter said South Africa belongs to all who live in it, whether you black, white, colored, or Indian, or Asian, or whoever. If you are a citizen and you hold a South African passport or an ID, you belong here. We don't push white people away. We are friends with white people. We are family with white people. We see blacks and whites getting married and having beautiful children.
Yes.
Why are the US trying to push a narrative that we don't want white people in our country? We know, sorry, before we continue, we know the important role that farmers play in our country. The food security is an important part of our upbringing.
Yes.
Our people, and especially our colored and blacks, they work on these farms. So the narrative that was created by the US government, it's a false narrative and it's misleading. It is baseless. What we can, however, say that crime is a burning point in South Africa. It's a pandemic, and it's not only white people that's dying. It's coloreds, it's blacks. We need to address crime in South Africa because we are all affected. Whether you live in Constantia, or you live in Waterkloof in Gauteng, or you live in Soshanguve, or Letchwale Puchwa in Free State, we are all we all see crime, we feel crime, and we see it. So we all affected by it. So the narrative that they want to create to say it's only white people, it's a wrong narrative and it's baseless. And I'm making a call on South Africans that they know what's happening. Because we live in this country, we were born and bred in this country. So we shouldn't be fooled about a narrative that's being created, what I call a dumb politician, which is Donald Trump.
Excuse me. Yeah, I agree with you. But you have to look at it in its, you have to contextualize it, right? Because Donald Trump's accusation about the white genocide, if you look at it from a bird's eye view, right, you will see that everything stems from South Africa taking Israel to the IJC. It stems from there. Donald Trump is a very strong supporter of Israel, right? But he also drives a narrative. But here's my question. He is saying that white people are being disowned of their land. Land that they got from where? That is my question. If you look at it generically and you take it back in history, right? When the oppressors came here, when Jan van Riebeeck them came here, they took the land. That land rightfully belongs to the First Nation people, belongs to the indigenous people.
My forefathers.
Yes, but you don't see the Khoisan people or the Griquas or the Namas saying, kill the Boer. Kill the Boer is a struggle song. The same like Senzenina, it's a struggle song. So that man doesn't understand the concept of struggle. Because Donald Trump is a businessman. He's not a president. He's a businessman. With him cutting the aid from South Africa, from Africa in general, right? That aid only amounts to what he's pulling back, only amounts to 7% of what they are spending. But now, the trade agreement with the agriculture sector is in jeopardy. But this is what I'm saying. This is my perspective. This is my view. Cyril Ramaphosa got ambushed. You can call it whatever you want to. I call a spade a spade. He got ambushed. When he walked there, Donald Trump had papers saying these are all white farmers that were killed. When that didn't work, he showed a video of white crosses, people being buried. When that didn't work, he pulled a Trump. He pulled a video of Julius Malema singing, Kill the Boer. Cyril was ambushed. That is it. However, our president, our commander-in-chief, needs to grow a backbone, man. He needs to grow a spine. Because currently, what he's doing, he's making South Africa grovel again.
No, I definitely agree. And I mean, my view on that, and I fully agree with you in terms of our president being ambushed. He had a delegation with him. The minister of...
A white delegation, mind you.
Yes. So, and that's on Trump's invitation also. But his delegation he had the Minister of Correctional Service there, Kosato was there, and then also other key important international relations, Minister Ronald Lambola, but also his support staff. I mean, he did ask where is that at, because I don't know. He should have called on the delegation, because why if you can't defend my
A
people.
nation.
He failed us. We for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then it's trending that genocide, white genocide is taking place in South Africa.
You went there, you prepared.
Even with those videos and that papers that they had, and the statements that he made, President Cyril Ramaphosa should have stood his ground and take his delegation into confidence and say, look here, but this is not true. President Donald Trump, what he was saying is not true. He didn't even explain that time what kill the poor, kill the farmer means. Like he's now, everyone, when media ask him, he's saying, no, it's a struggle song. And he
should have said it then.
He should have said it then. And he should have stood up for his country.
Yes.
Because it's the people that elected him to run as president of our country. He has failed South Africa because he couldn't stand his ground against Donald Trump. And we know that Donald Trump likes to do these things. Look what he has done to Zelensky. He's a dictator of a president.
Yes.
Because he wants to decide when people should be arrested and when people shouldn't be arrested. He must focus on what's happening in America.
In his country, yes.
African Americans who's facing what he says we are facing in South Africa.
They are facing on his soil.
On his own soil. They are being oppressed there. They are being thrown in jail if they walk in a white city or
Yes.
where the majority is white. Even if they live there, if they only see them, we see the videos that's trending.
And that's where Black Lives Matter came from.
Exactly. So, but to come back to our president, he has failed South Africa because he didn't stand up for the truth.
Yes.
And what is the truth? That there is no white genocide in South Africa. We are a beautiful country, and our judicial system wouldn't allow it.
Yes.
And we are governed by laws. We're not law abiding country where everyone just decides, look here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. If you step out of the law, you will be held accountable.
100%.
So he should have stood up like he's standing up now in the media to say that our judicial system is there and we are governed by the Constitution, this and that. It should have been said there because that is what we've expected. We've expected our president to go and clear the air of the false narrative that's being created.
Yes.
From President Donald Trump and Elon Musk and his deputy president and secretary. So he didn't do that.
Yes.
Instead, he went there to go and stand back.
Yeah.
Back gaat staan because they're relying on relations. If they don't wanna sanction us, let them. There's other nations. There's the BRICS nations.
You know that currently BRICS holds 60% of the world's GDP.
Yes.
So if America wants to exit the agreements, there are BRIC nations within BRICS. I mean, China will fill that gap immediately.
Definitely.
You know, and that is what I would have expected our president to go and do. Tell him, listen here, you do not challenge the sovereignty of South Africa.
Yes.
Because we are a nation on our own. You, just like we have respect for you and your rules, respect our democracy, respect our constitution, because this is the history of our people. This is where we came from. Respect that. If you don't and you choose not to do business with us, then so be it. There are other countries, there are other nations that will gladly do business with us. You know, South Africa is a rich country, rich in mineral resources, rich in people, rich in ethnicity. Yeah, ethnicity, right? Because at the end of the day, Mandela said, we are a rainbow nation. But the bottom line is, we've got people that think they are the elite. Not a lot of them, there's a select few, right? That believe that they've got that superiority complex, right? And think nothing of people of color. And Elon Musk is one of them. That's why he left the country.
And his father is still here.
Yes.
A white man.
A white
His
man.
father killed.
His father's not killed, his father's still alive. So him driving that narrative is hogwash. But on Starlink itself, I don't think that the government should actually deviate from the rules to accommodate Starlink. Because personally, I think that Starlink is a danger to national security. Because if you look at what happened overseas, when that particular government did not want to align itself with the United States vision and mission, the United States threatened to turn off the internet. Do you know how you crush a country's economy? By shutting down the telecoms. And that is exactly what is going to happen here.
Yeah, no, I think that whole narrative and false narrative that was being created is because Elon Musk didn't, like he said in his words, he has engaged, but they don't want him to have business in South Africa or to do business in South Africa. And then they ask him, when were you in South Africa?
Yes.
And that is what the Senator Tim Kaine asked the Secretary of State and said, when last was Elon Musk in South Africa? Because he said he wants to do business in South Africa and they don't allow him to do business. Did he make contact with the government of South Africa or other business people? No. He hasn't been here. His father has been here.
You see, on that topic, right? Foreign business, when they do business in South Africa, right? They need to ensure or adhere to the government's BEE policy, right? A certain percentage of equity of that business needs to reside with indigenous people, people of South Africa, black people, right? And Elon does not want to do that. So now, obviously, he's going to say the government doesn't want him to do business. He's more than welcome to come, but that is the condition. If you do not adhere to that, then don't cry. Because if you don't want to put petrol in your car, guess what? You won't be able to drive it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So Elon, he must check himself. He must really check himself.
Yeah, no, definitely.
My leader, it was great having you here. I'm looking forward to a lot more. It's always great chatting to you. The viewers out there would now have a better understanding why they should vote PMC come 2026 and beyond. They now know what family, community and opportunity means. They know why we say we want the Angogos and the Ansanas at the main table, and they understand that PMC is first and foremost an NGO, a non-profit organization, a community-driven organization. But because we understand that in order to bring effective change, one must play in the political landscape. And with that, I want to encourage the viewers out there, I want to encourage people of South Africa, do your homework, vote PMC, and go isto man. Go isto.
Ja, kom isto.
Go isto. Leader, I thank you.
No, thank you very much. Just my last closing words is I want to make a call to our people out there. Let's unite, let's stand together, and let's vote for PMC in the upcoming local government elections and make sure that we put a government forward that really listens and acts to the cries of our
Viva
people.
PMC, viva!
Koistu.
Koistu.